Have you ever experienced something so crippling in your life that has made you feel broken? I have. Are you someone who has a giving heart but is struggling to feel good themselves? Are you consistently putting your needs aside to take care of everyone else? If so, you're not alone. Giving starts with giving to yourself so that you are able to give of yourself to other people. Isn't it time you took back control and discovered what makes you tick? Join me in my journey and find out how you can feel better about yourself, live your best life, and share that with others. Thinking of yourself, it doesn't make you selfish, it makes you brave. I'm Nelia, and this is the Giving Starts With You podcast. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Giving Starts With You podcast. I am so happy and thrilled to have you back again for another episode. We've got such another amazing person today, Jonathon McLernon. How are you, Jonathon?
I'm doing fantastic. We've had a great chat prior to recording, so I know this is going to be a good episode.
Oh, I know. I just love meeting new people. And I can tell, I always say this on the podcast, but I can tell just in those first few minutes when you connect with somebody, and you can tell their heart through the screen, it's amazing. So
it is.
I can't wait to tell you guys some more about Jonathon. So Coach Jon is a husband, he's a father, he's a podcaster, coach, and mentor. Through his work, he strives to be a force for positive change in the world, one person at a time. He spent most of his life running from his true calling until one question changed his life. Now, as you guys all know, the Giving Starts With You podcast is about helping one another end loneliness through storytelling. So I love it when my guests come on and they're brave enough to share their stories and their transformation, because I know it helps the people that are listening. And that's what the show's all about. The other thing that the Giving Starts With You podcast is about is how we can give to ourselves through these hard times that we all have, so that we can get through our healing journey and help each other. Because honestly, I think there's just too many people who are suffering alone. And I hate that. I've been there and it just sucks. So today we're going to speak about a couple different things. We're going to speak about overcoming anxiety, managing trauma around emotional eating, and he's also a globetrotter nomad. So of course we have to, end this conversation on a high note and talk a little bit about travel. Are you in, Jonathon?
I'm 100% in.
Awesome. So you're in Alberta, fellow Canadian.
Yeah. So for those who might be south of the border, I am north of Montana and just east of the Rocky Mountains. So it's a really, really gorgeous part of the world.
Oh, that's amazing. And I was telling you, I'm from Barrie, Ontario, and the exact area. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Small world, right?
Well, it's when we tell people we're from Canada, like, it's like, oh, there's still a bit of a joke, so it's a big country with not a lot of people in it. And so it's just, but for those who are Canadian, on the $5 bill, Lake Moraine, well, that's only a couple of hours from where I live. And so I've got to go there a few times in the not busy season. And it's as beautiful or more beautiful than, the picture on the bill. So.
Oh, that's beautiful. And no, he's not. His background is not Alberta. Okay. So
yeah.
Alberta is. But yeah, thank you so much. I know you're so busy. You've got 4 podcasts that you host.
Mm-hmm.
You have a business, you have all of these things going on, and yet you're still here. So I appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate you as well. So I know you're very busy too. So it's, but I always have time for podcasting.
Yeah, I love it. Don't you? Like, it just makes my heart like so happy. I love connecting with people.
I started 1 and I ended up with 4. I'm not sure how that happened. There's like so many people I want to talk to. So
yes. Well, I'm glad you're here, but so how does your story begin? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what your challenge was, because I know you've overcome some things. So let's talk about it.
Well, my first challenge actually came at birth. So I was born at 26 weeks old. I was born at home and not expected to live. But my dad had the presence of mind to do CPR and with his pinky finger and unplug my nose with a syringe. And when they transported me to the local hospital, the local hospital didn't have an incubator waiting for me because I thought I'd be dead by the time they got there.
Hmm.
But thankfully I wasn't, as you can tell by my being here today.
Yes, thank goodness.
Yeah, so that was a bit of an illustrious start. So I spent the first 9 weeks of my life on life support in a NICU. Back in 1982, that's quite a time to be born at 26 weeks. Nowadays, I think with massive advances in medical technology and whatnot, they can, even 21-week-olds can survive. It's really quite impressive. But and I don't think I was born with too many deficits, thankfully. Other than maybe a few with regards to coordination and movement. I'm a little bit awkward and clumsy, but I'm okay with that. And so really I would say the first 18 years of life were relatively uneventful because I grew up in small town Canada. I got into trouble the way that kids do in small towns, but it was nothing too exciting. The next 20 years got a little bit more interesting. So I've just ticked over 40. I joined the Navy after a couple of years in university because I was kind of bored of university. I was like, I did nanotechnology and chemistry and whatnot. And then I decided not to do my PhD and decided to join the Navy and become a marine engineer instead. Along the way, I met a girl from Australia who is now my wife of 16 years. So
Congrats.
we've been together for a little while now. But one of the times I came back from a tour in the Navy, I was just tired of being gone all the time. And my wife has come halfway around the world to be my wife and to be my life partner, and I was gone all the time on ships. And so I came home one day and said, well, why don't we just go teach English somewhere? And I was kind of half joking, and she was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay. Not sure how we're going to do this, but within about 3 months, we were on a plane from Victoria, British Columbia to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And from there, we went inland to Guadalajara and started teaching there. And that was we'd done some traveling before that, but this is the first time that we were going on an extended tour. We thought we might go for like 6 months, but ultimately ended up turning into like 3 years of just
Oh,
being sort of
wow. That's
globetrotting
awesome.
nomads. And but it was along the way that when I was living in South Africa, when we were living in South Africa, I went through a trauma down there where I was attacked and nearly beaten to death, and wasn't really prepared, obviously, to go through something like that emotionally, mentally. And the fallout from that was I coped with my trauma through eating and binge eating. And so I gained a significant amount of weight in a very short window of time. It was actually quite shocking how much weight I could gain in a short window of time. And thus began kind of the real struggle. Trauma is a challenging thing because it leaves a mark on the brain in a way that unless you've been through trauma, it's really hard to fully grasp. And it doesn't make sort of logical sense in a way. So once I'd gained all this weight, then I was like, what's happened to me? I used to be an athlete and now I'm obese, and I don't feel like myself. And I'd really fell into a pattern of like self-loathing and kind of self-destructive behavior. It was almost like I was trying to hate my way into a healthier body,
Mm.
and it was just never going to work. So that went on for probably 6 or 7 years. And then I ended up hiring a coach. And this is where it gets the question that he asked me. And I was determined to show this guy that he was not going to be able to help me. I was going to prove that I was unhelpable, I was unfixable, I was totally broken beyond repair. That was it, and I was going to prove that. But I was hiring him just to sort of, I don't know, because I would say like, well, at least I tried, kind
Mm.
of thing. Because I'd lost a bit of weight and I'd gain it back, I'd lose some weight, I'd gain it back, and it was just this endless sort of cycle of pain and frustration and anguish. So at one point, he sat down with me and he said, I want to ask you a question. He said, if you make a list of all the things you love and value, how far down that list do I go before I find your name?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when he asked that question, I kind of didn't really have anything to say because I wasn't on the list. So it wasn't that I was like, somewhere near the bottom. It was I was not on the list. And I was and I was having this moment of realization, like I'm not on the list of things I love and value. And it never really had occurred to me that I was even allowed to be on this list of things that I love and value. It seemed like a foreign concept to me. And so it kind of started the wheels turning into figuring out, like, what is this that he's talking about? Like, what is self-love? My idea of self-love was like, I don't know, bubble baths and champagne and chocolate and I don't know, maybe Bridget Jones' Diary or something. Like I really had kind of a mixed up idea of what self-love looked like. And so now I've got to go on this journey and try and figure out, well, how do I learn self-love as a 30-something-year-old male who's never like talked about it before. And so that sort of kicked off this journey of discovery, and has formed the foundation of the work that I do now.
Wow. There's
Okay,
so
we
much
covered quite a
there.
bit.
There's so much there I want to talk about.
Yeah, that was the overview.
How scary that must have been for you to be attacked, first of all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it felt a bit like a movie.
Yeah, it's like you're outside your body. Like sometimes when I hear people tell me stories like this, and like for example, I spoke with a woman once who was talking about being raped and how she emotionally ate herself into this weight that she wanted to be invisible. So it's almost like I want to make myself so ugly that people won't notice me and I won't get raped again. So when you were telling me this story about, beating up to this point, and then, that you gained all this weight like so fast, I'm like, of course you did. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, why did you? It's like, yeah, like something's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
I'm grateful I didn't turn to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, because something's got to give. I mean, it's like you almost try to. I don't have the same experience that you have, so I cannot speak for, and I'm not trying to, but I'm just thinking of my own experiences, and I'm like, something's got to implode, because it's just you're trying to escape what happened, you're trying to understand it, you're trying to forget about it and take something in control where you didn't have control in that moment, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, yeah.
But yeah. And it's possible to empathize without having an identical experience, really, because there's common elements in the human experience. And the hardest part about mental health struggles is that you can't really turn your brain off. When someone gets physically injured, you can maybe give them a painkiller and sort of treat the injury. But to treat a brain injury or a brain dysfunction is really, really difficult. And we've come a very, very long way in terms of maybe the stigma surrounding it, but it's still incredibly difficult. And when I started developing like panic episodes and anxiety, I really didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know how to escape it either, because it's all happening in my head. And so that's a really, really tough place to be.
Jonathon, I don't know if you had the same experience or not, but so with me, how you're saying you can't shut it off. I forced myself to shut off my feelings, and it created this cycle of like PTSD and high depression and all these things. So I totally agree with you. It is not healthy to try to shut things down, because I can tell you 12 years that was my life. And the thing is, when you have something happen like that to you, like you did, it's almost like you become hyper, like your brain is working double instead of slowing down, right?
Yeah.
Because you feel every single thing tenfold what a normal person would feel.
Yeah.
Not that we're not normal, but
Well, what would be considered like a normal experience, normal lived experience? Everything is heightened. And I agree. Excuse me. Food was a way of numbing. I would eat until I was so full that all I could feel was that I was full, and it was uncomfortably full, like a compulsion to eat and eat and eat. But when I was that full, all I could think about was how uncomfortable I was, and it was such a physically pressing thing inside of me that I couldn't really focus on the anxiety in that moment. And so it was a tool, it was a coping mechanism. It wasn't a great tool, but it sort of worked. The interesting thing is, I say anxiety kind of helped actually to break the binge eating, because I began to start to have panic episodes around not being able to breathe if I ate too much food.
Okay.
And so I really started to become scared of feeling too full. And it was almost like a case of I would rather forego some of my eating than to get to the place where I'm so full that I feel like I can't breathe and I trigger a panic episode. It's quite a place to be.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time, because as you're speaking, things are coming back to me. And like you said, you can't, just because you don't have the exact same story, I too would get into panic attacks because of my breathing, although that wasn't my problem.
Mm,
So the
mm.
fact that you're saying that, like, it does trigger other things. Like, I would feel like I would be choking, like somebody was behind me, constantly be turning around, be like, stop touching me, and there's nobody there. And so I felt like I couldn't swallow for like a year. Like I couldn't.
Wow. Yeah.
And so these things they do. So, you had a little bit of a laugh there at the end, and I'm like, no, buddy, I get it. Like, I understand like what you're saying. I can feel what you're saying, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
That's so
It's,
tough.
yeah. It's now, the one thing I would say is I wouldn't take my difficult experiences out of my past, even if I had the option to. And it's not because I want them. It's not because I want to go through them again. But I wouldn't be where I'm at doing what I'm doing now had I not gone through these experiences and had to go through these really, really difficult years of kind of like looking for answers and not finding them for many years, and not even knowing where to go for help or what to ask for help. And I think this is one of the hardest parts is, one, how do you ask for help? And how do you ask for help when you don't even know what you need help with? And so a lot of people, I think, just end up feeling lost. And I was in that boat. So for me, I tried to focus on weight loss. I'm like, okay, maybe I won't hate myself if I lose weight. And
Okay.
ultimately, what it boiled down to is it didn't, like, I even at one point was able to diet down to sort of visible ab definition. It took a lot of sort of white knuckling and gritting my teeth and whatnot, but it was not sustainable. I burned myself out trying to do that, and frankly, nobody cared that I had visible ab definition. Nobody cared. It didn't. My life was not different because I had a little bit of a 4-pack going on.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I just have a question. So
mm,
you're finding yourself with this weight gain, right? Just trying
mm,
to make sure I understand what you're saying. And then you started to have these anxiety attacks and
mm.
panic attacks because of the breathing part. When you had those and you weren't quite ready to make the change and try to lose the weight, how did you cope with that? How did you cope with having those panic attacks? And like, they're scary when you're in the moment.
Yeah. Well, I read a really helpful ebook by a gentleman who goes by the name of Duff the Psych.
Okay.
Um, and it's F anxiety. You can
Yeah.
fill in
Okay.
the letters.
Yeah.
But
I'll,
and so it's obviously written in colorful language, but understandable language that kind of explains what's happening in your brain in and around anxiety. And the biggest sort of takeaway in the beginning is that, like, a panic episode can't actually hurt you. Like, it feels incredibly uncomfortable, but it can't hurt you. And so just beginning to realize that was like, okay, so it sucks,
but I'm not dying.
really, but I'm not actually going to die.
Yeah.
There is no recorded incidents, as far as I know, in any medical history of someone dying because of a panic episode. It's just this immensely, like, overwhelmingly uncomfortable feeling, but it can't even be sustained forever. Like, it can only go for so long before your body is exhausted, and that's where the depression would come in. It's kind of like redlining your nervous system for a period of time, and the body can't redline it anymore, and now it has to go into a state of depression. I've heard it called deep rest, which I kind of like that almost. To come, it's like burning a month worth of energy in a week, and then you have to fall into a state of depression to recover from having burned so much energy through being kind of this manic type phase.
I love the way you explain that, like, because it really makes sense. It's like, yeah, it's like your body wanting, it's your reaction, right? Like your body wanting to like comatose after all that adrenaline. It's
Yeah,
so true. It's so
but
true.
and then to try to explain the depression that I felt, because maybe it didn't fall into the clinical category. And it's like funny. I look back, I'm like, why would I ever have judged my experience? Well, that's not bad depression. There's other, and so on. It's funny that our brains have this way of doing this.
We're the
And
worst ones to do that because we can't see
yeah,
it like legit. Like we can't.
yeah. This is, and of course, maybe not wanting to acknowledge that I was battling with this, but the way I view it was really like my nervous system going into a state, and it would feel like this black cloud would descend over my head, and I would close my eyes and would feel like I was just kind of staring into a black void. And it was really difficult to feel anything except like I had a bottomless hole in my stomach, basically,
Um,
and blackness when I would close my eyes. And it was again, a really, really tough place to be. Now, I did a little bit of, shall we say, unconventional therapy, um, with a chiropractor who's kind of more of a neurologist than a chiropractor, I guess. here in Red Deer, the city that I live in, and according to Canadian law, he's not allowed to use that title, even though he has like the education, but it's not recognized in Canada. So he went down to the US, got the education, but couldn't use the qualifications in Canada officially. Go figure. Anyways, nonetheless, he was like, let's figure out what's happening in your brain. And he was able to explain a lot of what was happening in my brain. So piecing together sort of from what I'd read from the book by Duff the Psych on anxiety and what he was explaining, I started to feel like, okay, this is still a problem, but it's starting to feel like something that may not be like a crushing destiny for the rest of my life. It's going to be something that I can begin to manage. And so, yeah, it's hard to describe like what he did, because he figured out the parts of my brain that were kind of under functioning through a whole series of complex testing. And there's a whole backstory as to why he even went into this realm, of sort of this neurology. And it was because of his wife and daughter having an autoimmune condition where their brain was attacked by a virus. And so his understanding of the brain is just next level. Anyways.
But just the moment that you figured out and that you heard that message that this is not going to be the end of me, it gives you hope, right? It gives you like a chance that, oh my God, it doesn't have to be like this forever. Like there's something I can do maybe,
Yeah, that's it. Because I think what really drives people to extremes is this fear that this is the rest of my life, and I don't want to live the rest of my life like this because I don't see another way out.
Yeah, it's a hard place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you go from that to, okay, I need to stop having these panic attacks, so I need to lose weight so I can breathe, right? This is how this
there's a few pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you do that? Like
I think it's a really good question. I'll kind of explain a little bit of my story, but I want to put a little caveat in there. And that's that I think there's principles that we can take from my story and others can apply, but there's not really a template. And because people will hear, okay, I've lost 100 pounds, maybe I can, do the things that you did. And it's like, well, there's principles that you could probably follow, but I think your journey would look different than my journey. And so to try to copy another person's journey with your unique life circumstances, I mean, that forms the whole diet industry. That's a whole nother diatribe though. So, but really, so it started with self-compassion, at learning compassion. So it started with this coach who modeled for me what compassion is and what it looks like. So I began to show myself compassion. And as I started showing myself that, I started like feeling my feelings instead of trying to bury them. Because I realized, okay, these feelings are uncomfortable, but again, they can't actually hurt me. They just feel really, really, really uncomfortable. But when there was some sort of security that I felt knowing that like a panic episode really sucks, but it can't actually hurt me. Depression really, really sucks, but it can't actually hurt me. And so somehow just that picture in my mind meant, okay, it's safe to start feeling the feelings instead of just trying to numb them with food. And I would kind of do it maybe, I guess, in incremental fashion, and started to practice self-love, which probably doesn't look like people might expect. It was really started with brushing my teeth. So we probably don't think a lot about brushing our teeth, but it's an act of self-care. And so every time I would do that, it was like I was acknowledging that I was worthy of self-care and reinforcing or changing a belief in my head that I wasn't worthy of these things. And so as I started to heal my relationship with myself, there was less dependence on food to mask and bury uncomfortable emotions. And so it's kind of, there's still been plenty of ups and downs. I mean, I lost all my life savings and a failed business a few years after that. So that was a whole nother kind of storm to go through, but it was kind of this process of just, and it's still really in a sense of work in progress. Like, I don't think the work is ever really done, but it's not until the day we're laid to rest, really. We're just on this journey. But I look back now and the person that I was even 5 years ago, I almost don't recognize. That's how much change has taken place. And if you'd have told me 5 years ago that I could be where I am now, that it was possible, I would not have believed it, because I could not see it as possible because I'd not lived that experience.
And it all started with you putting yourself on that list.
Yeah. Putting myself on the list, practicing self-compassion, allowing myself to feel feelings, getting some real help with my anxiety, stop feeling ashamed of it, and actually tell people that this is something that I struggled with. And in telling them, I said, you don't have to try to fix me or even help me. But if you want to sit beside me, you can. That's all you have to do is just sit there and be there with me. Like, you don't have to do anything else. Because so often when we're experiencing uncomfortable emotions and difficult experiences, other people try to shut it down because they're uncomfortable and don't know what to do. And
Yeah.
so I would tell people it's okay. You don't have to do anything, you know, but it brings up uncomfortable emotions that they're not used to dealing with and processing. And so the natural instinctive response is, like I said, to try to shut it down.
It
Oh,
makes
that's
so much
nothing.
sense. Yeah, but at
Yeah.
the same time, they're actually doing you a disservice
Oh,
because you
very much so. Yeah.
did not shut it down.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. The
but
worst thing you could say to somebody is, oh, that's nothing.
yeah.
That's the most insensitive thing to say. And maybe it isn't even said with malice. It's almost said with good intent. I would like to diminish your pain by telling you it's not a big deal. Well, right now, what it feels in my head and my body, it is a big deal, actually.
Yeah. And it, like you said, it doesn't come from a bad place. It just comes from not ever perhaps experiencing that yourself. So you don't know, you know.
Mm, mm.
But I would almost rather somebody say the wrong thing than not say anything.
True.
You know, I've
Yeah.
had that happen too, where it's kind of like, you know, you're being indifferent. That even makes me feel less loved, you know, like,
Yeah. I think indifference is different than comfortable silence.
mm, I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. It's, you know, if you're listening to this and you're listening to John's story, you know, you have to reach out to people. I'm sure it wasn't
Mhm.
comfortable for him. It wasn't comfortable for me. You're like, people are going to think I'm crazy. I'm ashamed of this. Why is this happening to me? Why can't I just deal with stuff like everybody else? And it's like, you have to reach out to someone, you know,
Mhm.
and if
Mhm.
that person's not the right person, then get rid of them and find somebody else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is about you, you know, you get one life and you don't want to
Mm.
suffer. Like, honestly, there are things that people can do. Just gotta put it
Yeah.
out there.
Well, a phrase that I use a lot, especially my work around sort of nutrition coaching, is you can't read the label when you live inside the bottle.
Mm, I love it.
Right. And so there's insight that a qualified, compassionate professional can give you that you really can't see in yourself because it's not been your lived experience. And so the reason I guess I'm able to help the people that I work with in the way that I do, not because I have identical experience to them, but it's because I have enough similar life experience and struggles that I go, I can see that now. And I've helped, hundreds of people, and so I can spot it. It's like we can't see it. We have emotional blind spots that we really can't see.
Mm.
And it's not that I'm the star of their show, but I use the analogy like, hey, a goaltender has a goaltending coach. Probably the best goaltender in the NHL has a goaltending coach who's probably not as good a goalie, because if he was as good a goalie, he'd be the one on the ice being the
Golly.
goaltender. Right.
Yeah, it's so true.
But,
That's,
some of the best coaches in the NHL were not great players. Um, but it's the ability to see things. And so it doesn't diminish you as a person if you hire a coach to help you. It doesn't take away from your skills and abilities. It's actually refining and nurturing and growing and developing these skills and helping you become the best. So that's why I call myself a coach. I mean, technically, I guess I'm a nutritionist, but really, I say a coach, and I don't say life coach. I've been told, you should call yourself that. And I'm like, I kind of hesitate, partly because the industry I feel like has kind of been hijacked by unscrupulous people over time. And it sounds a little bit pretentious because I'm like, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. I'm more like a tour guide,
mm.
and I'll often say to people, I think of me as a tour guide. I'm not a Sherpa.
I love it. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And I so respect people like you, because here you have this thing that took over your life for a while. And now you've decided to dedicate this part of your life to helping people in the same position. And
Mm,
I find that so admirable, because I think the people that can be helped the most are people who are hiring people like you that have been through it.
yeah.
You can only learn so much in a book, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really feel people can connect with you. You're amazing.
It's so funny because 4 years ago, I had a supplement store, nutrition and supplement store, and that's when it failed. It was 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. And I decided, okay, I'm going to build this business around nutrition coaching. And I want to build a business people can't take away from me, and so it's going to be mine. And I was so terrified to tell the truth of my story and my struggles, because I'm like, what are people going to think? I don't look like a fitness model. You're not going to see me flexing my abs on Instagram or putting on Gymshark pants and squeezing my glutes together for the perfect shot. Like,
Yeah.
just, you don't want to see that. So I was like, how am I going to connect with people? I know I can help them, but this is what I'm up against, is people posting pictures. They're really, physically attractive human beings with nice physiques, and presenting that as desirable. How on earth do I compete with that? And thankfully I came to the realization that I don't have to.
No,
You know,
I love it.
that's the best part of it. It's like, I don't have to. And people hire me because they're like, oh, you'll get it. You will actually understand it because you're like a real human, you know?
Yes. And your story can ignite all this, I don't know, this fire in people, right? Like, oh my God, he
Yeah.
did it. I can do it. He gets me. He's not perfect. It's okay.
Yeah. There's such power in stories. I mean, my podcast is called Between the Before and After.
I love the name.
And it's, yeah, it's about, so it's like social media shows us, say, a before and after photo, but it doesn't tell the story.
Mm.
And it sort of conditions us to think, well, I want that result without having to go on the journey. But I'm like, oh, the journey, man. Like I said, I wouldn't take my past experiences away. The journey, if we can realize there's so much gold in the journey, even as hard as it is, and even as much as we wish we wouldn't go through these experiences, like, I have never met a remarkable person who had an easy life. And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
but stories. So what I discovered when I shared my story was that people connected with me. They didn't want to learn about carrots and night vision. That didn't mean anything to them, right? They they wanted to know human stories. And so we look at other people's stories and we read ourselves into them. And then we look, okay, I see myself, or I see elements of myself in this story, meaning that, okay, I can maybe do this because this person with these similar characteristics to me has been able to do this. And so I think that what you do in terms of sharing people's stories is so important, because we read that story, or we listen to that story, and we read ourselves into it and go, okay, it is possible for me because I now know someone who's done that. And now I've heard their story, heard them speak. And so I think it's amazing.
Mm. I love doing this job. Like, it's not even a job. Like, it's not work. It's just, like you said, the journey it's got to be hard for it to know that you're going to break through. If it's not hard, you're perhaps not being honest about it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't, it's not till you get right to the the hardest part, that you start to come out the other side. And if you don't go through that, there's no real healing journey. It's just a journey. Like, it's just one that may never end. I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so hard, but I love that we have these types of conversations. Even on your show, you have these types of conversations where it's just, I think people on the other side, hopefully that's the goal, is that they're going to be like, yeah, maybe my story isn't quite like this person, and that's okay. But this part about the anxiety, or this part about being attacked, or this part of, just feeling down and feeling that I'm not on the list. When you said that, I was like, wow, when did I start becoming on my list?
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't until like 3 years ago. And I'm 50.
Okay.
And that's a long time to not be on your damn list,
No kidding. By the
That's
way,
a long
I'm
time.
I'm like, you said you're 50, and then like, I'm like, you could have convinced me that you're quite a bit younger, actually, successfully.
Oh, thank you. Hallelujah. I just turned 50 in June, but I embrace it. I'm like, it's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
All good. But I
No,
feel
you're
like,
very youthful in terms of your
oh,
energy.
thank you so much. I appreciate that. You know, okay, so I'm pretty introverted, not when I come on here,
Yeah. Yeah.
because when I love what I'm talking about, I can't hide, I just love what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I love talking about things that mean something. I'm not like talk about the weather. I can't do parties, and I can't do,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just not me. I can't do the fake thing. I did it for so long. And I think maybe that's why, because maybe when we're done, I'm kind of like, okay, I need a coffee. It's been a long day. But while we're
Yeah. Yeah.
here, just to be honest, that's me a
Yeah.
lot of the time. I run low on energy, and except when I'm, meeting people like you and just connecting through stories that make us feel real and make us
Mm.
feel human, and that's why I do what I do, is
Yeah.
because, giving back and sharing stories is what keeps me alive every day.
Well, I
And
think,
yeah.
being introverted is very often misunderstood. It's not that don't like social interactions necessarily, but there's maybe a limited amount of energy that you have for that. My wife is more extroverted than I am as well.
Yeah.
She's like the kind of the life of the party, the performer. She's into theater and improv and all of this. And that's not my thing, you know, but podcasting and meaningful connections with people, that's really my thing. I love it.
Yeah, I love that too. I love music and I am a
Mm,
songwriter and a little bit of a musician and stuff. But oh my God, if you think I'm going to get up there and do anything for anybody, I'm going to have like a heart attack first. I'll have anxiety first, all of these things.
yeah.
But then when you do something outside of your comfort zone as an introvert, and I actually like the odd time will step out of that and do it, man, I feel so proud of myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would never have said that 3, 4 years ago. I'd be like, oh, that's so conceited. And now it's like I
Mm,
tell the listeners all the time, thinking of yourself and talking about yourself, to me, it's not selfish, it's brave. And
yeah.
for a long time I felt that it was selfish because I grew up that way. I grew
Yeah.
up taking care of everybody else, but when you take care of yourself, it makes you look like you think you're better than everybody,
Yeah.
and it's so not that. And for
Yeah.
so long I put all my stuff aside and I ended up with so many problems you know
Yes. Yeah. The classic set yourself on fire to keep others warm. That was like my,
yes.
and here's the truth is it's easier to help other people than it is to help ourselves. And it's almost a way of procrastinating and not facing our stuff, is to, for me, it's just, there's got to be a turn of phrase in there. Stuffing my face instead of facing my stuff. There we go.
Wow, that's a good, I hadn't heard that before. Wow.
um, Right. So it's easier to help other people because I was successfully coaching people even when I was like 290 pounds, 300 pounds. And I felt like a total fraud. But the fact is I'm actually a really good coach. It's like I'm a born coach. And I couldn't have told you that 5 years ago. I would have felt like I wanted the floor to swallow me up for me to utter those words. But I'm
Mm.
actually a world-class coach. And over time, I've come to learn that. And I've connected with and worked with world-class coaches, even coached them. And I go, and it's okay to be that because I think every one of us has gifts and talents and abilities. And me recognizing and trying and using these gifts and talents and abilities I have doesn't diminish anybody else's gifts.
Mm. Yeah, just hearing you talk today and how well you're like able to explain yourself, it just, yeah, I think you're amazing.
Well,
I
thank you.
honestly do. I think anybody would be lucky to have you in their corner. I'm so glad
Yeah.
that the things that happened to you brought you to this place. You know, it
Yeah.
is hard when you're in the crap to
Yeah. Yeah.
to like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? Why? There's nothing good coming out of this today.
Yeah.
And then maybe a month later, maybe 10 years, for me, it was 12 years later. It's like, oh my God, I needed that. I
Mm-hmm.
needed to go through all those horrible things to 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 really discover who I am.
It's almost like sometimes we have to get brought to the place where there's no other option except to ask for help. And then we actually get help and you go, why is I so stubborn? Why did I not ask for, like, there is zero shame in asking for help. Like I work in the realm of weight loss, but I very often say that's the cover story. Like to be truthful, like I'm like weight loss is the proxy goal and nutrition is the cover story for the real work that we're actually going to do.
Mm, love it.
I want to have like the tagline, like side effects might include weight loss.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's but I meet people where they're at and they want to lose weight. I'm like, awesome, we'll start with that, and then over time, as it evolves, because it inevitably will, we're going to discover what that weight loss actually means to you, what it is you really want out of life, and but this is hard stuff. It is really, really, really hard, and it's super hard doing it by yourself. So I'm like, recruit every darn person you can find on your support team.
Mm.
Get everyone you can on your support team because it's already hard enough to do this, and so get all the support you need and do not apologize for needing support and help.
No, you can't do it alone.
Mm,
We have to come to the conclusion of wanting to start. That comes from us. Like
mm,
making that first decision to say, okay, there's got to be more to life than this. Let me do
yeah,
something. But once you've made that decision, there's no way you can go forward by yourself. There's no
yeah.
way.
Well,
Yeah.
I think about like how long it took me to learn stuff because I was too proud. Like it's kind of misplaced ego, really, but I was too proud to ask for help because I thought it was weakness.
Hmm.
And boy, when I hired a coach and like shortened the learning curve by probably 10 or 15 years,
Wow.
I was like, man, I already have struggled for long enough. Why did I not do this like years ago? I could have, I don't mourn like lost years in a sense, but I think, boy, if I'd have found this coach 5 years earlier, I would have saved myself a lot of heartache.
Yeah, I ask people sometimes why they don't hire a coach. And for a lot of people, it's money. Let's be
Mm,
honest.
yep,
And I'm
fair
like, you
enough.
know what? Yes. But one thing you can't get back is your time.
Hmm.
So if you can cut your pain in half, if you can cut it in a quarter, whatever it is,
Yeah,
the time is priceless. Time is going to go anyways. Time is going to pass anyways.
yeah.
You know, if you're going to spend money on anything, spend it on yourself, spend it on that,
Hmm.
because honestly, your life is going to change. Like when I talk to people like you, and it's like, okay, you see yourself before and you see yourself now. And if you could just tell people, oh my God, like now I want to shout it from the rooftop how I got from here to
Yeah,
here. And this is a
yeah,
true story. This is not like a Hallmark movie, like this is
yeah,
true,
yeah,
true people that have gone through stuff.
yeah.
And you just want to tell everybody, look, trust your
Mm,
instinct, it's going to get better, but you got to
yeah,
commit, right? And sometimes it
yeah.
takes money.
Well, so I used to be really like hung up about money and even accepting money for what I do
Mm,
because I didn't realize that I actually have a pretty unique skill set. So I call myself kind of like an empathic engineer. Uh,
love it.
because I have a really quick thinking brain as well, and I can't take the credit. I got it free of charge, right? um, you know, but my brother used to hate playing board games with me. Most people hated playing trivia games and things like that because my brain does work really quickly, and I didn't recognize that it was unique in that sense. I just thought it was, I don't know, it's just kind of how my brain works. So it turns out I'm actually really good at figuring out sort of plans to help people, like creating like if somebody comes to me, my brain goes, "Brrr, oh, cool. I've already calculated a way that I can help them. And I
Uh,
can sort of see where this path will go. And it might not be the exact path, but to be able to do that, I didn't realize that that was actually a pretty unique ability. And then you add in the what we call the EQ or the emotional intelligence, the ability to connect with people. It's like, wow. So I'm actually giving a lot of myself when I work with people. And when we don't put some kind of investment into it, there's no perception of value. And if we don't value it, we don't actually take it seriously. And so I had to get over this hurdle. Like when people pay me, it's a reflection of the value they expect to receive.
mm.
And it's not to say that I'd love to charge $1 million a month, but I don't. Not,
Yeah, but it's like,
you know,
this is the result you're getting. What is
yeah.
it worth to you?
Mhm, mhm. Well, yeah, that and so to get over that hurdle and go and I used to be so like afraid to invest in coaching myself. I was like, because I was stubborn. I'm going to figure this out myself. I couldn't tell you like how much money I have saved because I hired somebody else to help me. How much money did I save just in terms of binge eating? Like that's expensive, you know?
That's your time too. You can't put a
Yeah.
price on your time.
Yeah.
We
And
just don't
so,
know how long our time is here. And do you want
yeah.
to just throw it away?
So it's and I mean, I'm not trying to be some sort of cliche, I don't know, sales guru or something like
Yeah.
that. But the reality is when we put some money, because money is a medium, because money is just a placeholder, right? It in itself is just, polymer notes with ink printed on them that we mentally assign a value to. It's not actually worth anything. It's just a medium that if we like take to the Bank of Canada or something that we can, anyways, we won't get into monetary theory. But the
But
point
it's
is, so
true.
I exchange my time, expertise, and so on, in order to get some money. And then I take that money and then I exchange it for other goods, whether it's food and housing and clothing and things like that. So I invest into something to get some money back. And then I take that money and so it's just a placeholder. So when I often remind myself there's two things that really show my priorities, and that's my calendar and my bank balance. So
Mm.
how I spend my time and how I spend my money. I understand it's like, hey, life's tough. I mean, you got inflation and money printing and crazy, this kind of stuff. But I look at it and I track every month what we spend and I create a spreadsheet because I'm a data nerd and things like this. But I want to see like where it's going. And then I can go, well, in my mind, it's like, well, I didn't have any money for this, but it's like, look at all this money I kind of frivolously spent over here. Or look at this time that I frivolously spent over here, that I don't have time thing. And it turns out, well, I actually do have time and I could actually put together this money. It would just mean I would have to sacrifice certain things. And so it helps me identify, well, what is really, truly important to me, I guess.
Absolutely. We all choose our priorities. We all choose how we spend money, how we spend our time. Absolutely. And we all have to put ourselves on that list. Like when you said that, I
Yeah,
was just
yeah,
like, oh my God, it just kept me thinking,
yeah.
and it's so true. How far down are you guys on your list?
Mm,
You know, how much are you valuing yourself? And then as you value yourself more, you will find that. You will find the time to work on yourself. You will find the money to get the help you need. You will do so many things that perhaps
yeah,
you never believed you could.
yeah, yeah. It's wonderful. It's amazing. It's a great place to be. I gotta say, like, it feels really good to be here, compared to what I used to be at. And so I really hope that people just see that it's possible. It's you know the hard times don't last. I mean, and frankly, like good times don't necessarily last either. Life has an ebb and a flow to it, kind of like the waves behind me. And if anyone's watching the video, it's life. There's an ebb and a flow to it, and when we kind of just make peace with that, we go, okay, but yeah, you don't have to stay stuck forever. You just have to kind of go through a tunnel of sewage to get to the other side. I have a whole analogy around the tunnel of sewage in a transformation journey and what it actually looks like. But we might save that for another time. But I think people can
Yeah.
take the visual and run with it. Like maybe we think that we're going to ride a unicorn across the clouds and the rainbow bridges to get to the other side, when in reality we're going to go through tunnel of sewage. It's going to be dark and smelly. This is the short version: dark and smelly and difficult. But if we're willing to go through that and through the hard stuff, we come out the other side a transformed person.
All right. I got to tell you guys. So Coach Jon is writing a book,
Yeah.
and I can't wait when you publish that book and it's all done. Maybe you
Yeah.
can come back and you can
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the book. I'd love to have you back. I think your book's going to be phenomenal, and I think it's going to really resonate with people.
Well,
Sound good?
thank you. Yeah, I would love to come back and tell people about it. So, you know,
Awesome. Awesome.
it's a challenging undertaking. I'll say that.
Yes, but I'd love to hear more about it. So, Jon, I know you do a lot of travel.
Yeah, yeah.
Has that, okay, so sometimes I ask my guests this question, and I'm just curious to your answer. So I'm going to ask you, what has been the biggest gift that you give to yourself that changed either the way you felt about yourself as a person or just the trajectory of where you've gone? Like, what do you think? I mean, there's going to be a few, but what do you think was the
Mm.
most profound gift that you gave, like you allowed yourself to kind of do for yourself?
I really think it was spending the money. The coach's name was Scott Quick. Great man. I love it. Love the guy. I reach out to him every year. So spending the money to hire him,
Yeah.
he genuinely changed my life. And there's no hyperbole in that. I was on a really destructive path. And when I hired him, I was determined to show him that he couldn't fix me or help me. So for him to work with me as patiently and compassionately as he did, like, entirely altered my path in life. It's altered my marriage. I'm now an amazing father to a beautiful little boy who I adore with all my heart. And I would have been a good father before, I think, but the level of compassion, understanding that I have and love for my little boy, and watching him grow and develop, like, it's just, I'm in a totally different place because I spent the money to hire that darn coach. And
Yeah.
so it's like,
It sounds
because
like,
I,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
well, so because I made that investment in myself, even not believing it was going to work, it had the effect of, I've got, my marriage is stronger than ever. My being a father is like the greatest thing ever, and I make time for my little boy every day, even though it's busy running a business. Like, I can hear him in the background. Hopefully, I don't know if my mic will pick it up. He's making some noise in the background, but it's just the greatest joy. But I wouldn't be here and now had I not, taken that step and got the help. So I think that's like hands down the single best thing. Traveling would be like probably number three on the list. Marrying my wife is probably like the best thing I did, right? But
And
because she's amazing.
it sounds like that coach also inspired you to be a coach.
Yeah, yeah, he really did, because I'd kind of been a teacher before. I'd done like some sports coaching before in my athletic days and whatnot. And he showed me, like, you actually have a real gift for this
Mm.
if you wanted to go down this road. And there was another coach who I really look up to. She's also a world-class coach, and I hired her. So then I got hooked. Okay, I'm like, okay, now I know what it's like to hire a good coach. I'm going to hire another one. So I hired her because I really looked up to her, and And I wanted some of her time and be able to pick her brain. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to pony up some cash and hire her. And she was wonderful too, because, and she said to me, she said, like, some people, they're good technicians, as she called it. Like in the diet industry, it might be like calculating macros or sets and reps and meal plans and stuff, like the technical stuff. She goes, some people should just never be a coach. And then there's people like you. And she's like, you just came out complete. Like, you're born coach. It is in your DNA, and it's what you do, and it's what you should do for the rest of your life. And
Mm.
I was like blown away, because this is a coach who is like world class, who's flown around the world to give talks and things like that. And she said that about me. And it was actually kind of hard to receive that in one sense, but I was like, okay, I think I'm going to accept that, and start to be okay with the fact that this is actually, I'm really good at this and I love it and I'm deeply passionate about it. And so I feel like it's really exciting that I get to pursue my passion and really have, I love seeing people's lives transformed. Like, it's so gratifying.
Mm.
And so it's kind of a way of paying it forward. The person that helped me and changed my life, inspired me. I want to do this for more people, because I don't want to see people stuck and suffering the way that I was. So if I can help even one person, it's worth it.
I love this conversation so much. I can't even, there's so many things. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm all about paying it forward and giving
Yeah.
back. And I just, so great, honestly. We could talk forever, but I do want to talk to you before you go. I want to talk to you about your travels. So,
Yeah.
what does traveling do for you? What does it do for your psyche? What does it do for your
Mm.
coaching? How does it help you in your life?
I think it just expands my mind. So I really like, coaching is really about the human experience.
Mm.
It's, yes, there's maybe some technical expertise. I have pieces of paper with my name on it that say I'm educated in certain things, but really it's about the human experience and human connection. So when we travel and we go to a country where we are clearly minorities, or where we don't speak the language, and we feel the frustration of trying to communicate with limited tools and skills, oh, this is what it's like to be a beginner. Aha. Because sometimes we get into our field and we become an expert, and we become so fluent and so familiar with it, we forget what it's like for somebody to start.
Mm.
And so to go and be a beginner again and feel like really dumb, it's like, it's good. It's like, oh, okay, now I remember the human experience of trying to learn something. Like, we lived in Poland, for example, trying to learn to speak Polish. Good grief, that language is hard.
All I know is cześć jak się masz. Dobrze.
Yeah, cześć,
That's all
jak
I
się
know.
masz? Dobrze. Yeah. Wszystko dobrze, no tak.
Grade 10 Polish boyfriend, but that's all I learned.
Yeah. And so it's like mind expanding. And then we learn so much about like our common humanity. Like, there's surface level differences, but I'm like, honestly, we're all looking for the same thing. We want to have meaningful human connections. We want to have a life where our needs are met, and beyond just like food, clothing, shelter. We want like meaningful human connection is what really adds something to life, that, and so to be able to travel and have those experiences, you know, I thought I would like the best, seeing really cool things, like whether it's, the Eiffel Tower, which is pretty neat to see, I will say, or, but it's the human connections that we made in our travels that really, that's what we look back the most fondly on.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah.
My trip to Guatemala a couple years ago, when we started our project, it's so much more, like you said, yes, there's poverty and all these things, but you just want to bring hope to these people.
Mm,
You want to show them what's possible. We can bring that to them.
mm,
At least maybe that's our way to help. They help us so much more than
mm,
we could
yeah.
ever give. But I find just the human connection and just the celebrating the fact that we're more the same than we are different, even
Yes. Yeah.
even though it may not seem like that on the surface. We all, like you
Mhm.
said, we just want the same things.
Oh, look, you cut any of our skin and the same color blood comes out, like, it's, yeah, it's remarkable. There's something about it, and there's so many hospitable cultures around the world. It's like, when you kind of get past the initial, like, I want money because you're maybe a foreigner with money, you kind of get past that surface level interaction to, I want to share with you my food and my culture, and the hospitality is just amazing.
Mm.
It's, I was touched in so many like poor countries just by people wanting to share hospitality, and almost like not wanting to accept anything in return, even though it wouldn't cost much for us to sort of, because I'm very fortunate to have been born in Canada. I won the lottery, right? Like,
Yeah, I feel the same
so
about being here. Yeah.
yeah, so it's just, it does something for our heart, for our soul, to just connect with other human beings. We become so much more compassionate and empathetic and open-minded to the struggle of the human experience when we witness what other people go through, and so much more appreciative of really all the privileges that we enjoy. um, like being born in a first world country. It's amazing. I don't
I
feel guilty about it, but
completely agree.
I
I
feel
completely
grateful.
agree.
Yeah.
Yes, grateful. That's a huge thing because um yeah, I I almost think it's our responsibility, and I tell this to people I work with all the time, that turn yourself into a traveler rather than a vacationer. Okay, there is a
Mm,
difference. You can go to a resort and you can drink and you can party and you can do whatever you want. If that's the way you like to vacation, that's the way you like to vacation. But please, just keep an open mind.
yeah. Yeah.
Take a couple of those days, get off the resorts, help the community in some way.
Mm,
Create your own, lead your own project, teach them skills that you have that can make their life so much easier. Bring your children with you. Your
yeah. Yeah.
children come back and they become different people. They become so, when I left, and I've told this story so many times, but I'll be quick about it. But when I left Guatemala and I came back, it was a week before the planes shut down. 2 weeks back from vacation, my life's back to normal, except for
Mm,
COVID.
you're right.
I
Yeah.
became this angry, bitter person for about a month. And I'm just like, oh my God, people have been stuck in their houses, complaining about being with their families. I just came from a country that puts white flags outside their doors because they haven't eaten in days, where kids that I met have dengue fever, now have to worry about corona, and all they want to do is be at home with their families. And you come back and you hear about the States and in Canada and all these places, um, Australia, all these wealthy countries, and they're, oh my God, I've got to be stuck with my family at home. And honestly, I just had this anger inside of me like I had never had before. And I started to appreciate so many things. I went through this phase where I just got rid of all this stuff. I'm like, why do I have all this stuff?
Right. Yeah.
And I think we have a responsibility for all of us to do that, to take the time and discover other places with your family and teach your
Yeah.
children about the world outside of their city. It's so
Yeah. Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah.
That was my rant. I'm sorry, I'm so passionate about the subject.
No, it's
I
obviously
really
left a real impact on you, and
oh,
that's a beautiful thing. And so, and I'll just say, coming back to Canada after 3 years of traveling was a bit of a reverse culture shock, because we came back
mhm.
changed people from all the experiences we'd had, good and bad. And then a lot of people, other than getting 3 years older, really hadn't changed. Maybe same job, same, and so on. And it's not their fault, but it's just, we all of a sudden had totally different life perspectives. And there's something about travel that it just changes you in a way that, and it's not to say I'm better than them or anything, but it just, you can't help but grow from those kinds of experiences. And I thought about, like, when we went to Cuba and we paid $5 for the lady to take us off the resort to do exactly that. And we paid another $5 for some guy with a donkey cart to drive us around this little town. And my Spanish was pretty bad, but it was functional. And like, it was worth it. And what an experience, and it must have done something for them too.
Oh, it does wonders. And 3 years, wow. It's almost like I can't imagine because I haven't been away for, more
Yeah.
than a
Yeah.
couple weeks at a time. But it's almost like time. Okay, so time usually goes so fast, but I find when you're living like that and you're living in the moment and you're appreciating and you're learning, time slows down,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's almost like you need to do that because life goes so fast. Like,
Yeah.
appreciate, and yeah, it's not your fault that people have remained stagnant and you've moved on and learned other things. But I'm so glad that you come back and you have these conversations so that you can still, whether you're having dinner with someone and you're telling them about your experiences, you're still sharing that. And I think in what you do and what I do with podcasts as well, those stories will live on forever. And I think I'm hoping it's going to like really inspire people to maybe get out of their comfort zone and do that. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You can raise the money. So we all need a little, and it's so good for the soul, right?
It is, and we can do it locally, even if you don't have the opportunity to travel. Like I'm sure that even in my own city, I can find areas of need, and so maybe you don't have the opportunity or the the resources at this point in time to travel somewhere, but like doing something kind for someone pays at least two people.
Yes,
and it creates there's a potential for a ripple effect, and so I one of the things I do is I create content for another company, and I always finish like the live streams that I do with just encouraging people to do something generous or kind and pay themselves and help another person, and potentially, because there's a lot of challenging things happening in the world today that we have no control over, and as one person it can just feel like really discouraged, like what on earth can I do with all these major problems? And so you can do something kind for somebody, that's something you can do. So we think about what's outside of my control. A whole lot of stuff: wars, economy, weather, like disasters, like this is all out of my control. But what's in my little world? What can I control? I can do something kind for someone.
Thank you, Jonathon. Or should I call you Coach Jon? Sorry about that.
both work,
Where can people find you? Oh my God, I know my listeners are going to want to connect with you more. Where can we find you?
freedomnutritioncoach.com is my website, which is occasionally neglected, but you can find me there. It's just, I really would like to update some of the messaging to more convey more accurately the work that I do now and how it's even grown and evolved from the time that I started Freedom Nutrition Coaching. You can find between the before and after. I would love for people to have a listen to that. I just learned recently that I've made it into the top 10% of podcasts globally. And I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I went into it with no expectations. So it feels really cool to have done that. And then I guess you could just look me up on social media. I was going to throw one other, but you know what? Let's keep it simple. freedomnutritioncoach.com. If you look up Jonathon McLernon, you'll probably find me. There's not too many of us out there with that name, and so I'm not too hard to find. If you send me an email, the guy that Nelly has been talking to is the guy that you're going to talk to as well. I think who I am is who I am. I don't have any pretense anymore. So,
and I can see that. I mean, there's no question, for sure. And I've got to put it out there. If you guys are enjoying the show and you are enjoying the topic of Jonathon's show, it helps podcasters so much if you download, subscribe, rate, and review. I have never asked for that on this show live. It's in the part of my my recorded section of the show. But honestly, it's not because of the numbers. We don't care about the numbers. We care about the people behind them, and we just want our messages to reach more people, because I think some things are said on the show that can really help people. So share it with your friends and listen to a show and give them a good rating and all that
review,
all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, if you want to see like the video editions of the show, I do my broadcast live on my YouTube channel, which is Freedom Nutrition Coaching, and you'll see them there. I actually have a Twitch stream as well, but I have like one person log on from Twitch when I'm streaming. It's great. Freedom Nutrition Coach, if you happen to be on Twitch. But yeah, I broadcast like Facebook, LinkedIn, which again, Freedom Nutrition Coaching, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. So if anybody wants to like listen to the show live in real time, if you happen to be lucky enough to catch it, because it's not at a set time, you can actually participate and even ask questions for the guests and things like that and be a part of the show. So
it's amazing. And I'm going to put all the links anyways. And honestly, I'm inviting you back when you have your book ready to go. I would love to have a conversation about your book.
Well, I hired a writing coach, actually.
Excellent.
Yeah. Excellent. I was like, I'm such a fan of coaching. I'm like, well, let's make this process easier. I'm hiring a coach.
Oh, I know. I've got some too. And they open up your mind to what's possible. Because, when you ask your friends and your family or other people in the space, they didn't necessarily, they all have their influences, right? So they didn't act, I don't know, sometimes they'll think too much like you, and then you're like, well, that's not really helping. You kind of need somebody, I don't know, with the experience.
Impartial third party who is not emotionally invested.
Yes, perfectly said. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So great to, yeah, so great to meet you. Is there anything you want to end with, something we didn't talk about that you?
I would just say this, compassionate awareness is where we create change. And so it's very important that we include the element of compassion. Now, here's why. Compassion is not a get out of jail free card. What it is it allows us to see ourselves as we are without the judgment. So it gives us the space to bring our struggles into the light. And in that space of awareness with compassion, we can really, truly create change. And so if you can learn to show yourself some compassion and create awareness around your behaviors, you can really, really create amazing change in your life.
Very well said. I love it. And I'm hoping your book is about compassion.
It is. Spoiler alert. Yes. I'll save the title as of yet, because it's not a finalized title, but yes, it probably will have the word compassion in the title.
Awesome. So great to meet you. Thank you so much, Jonathon. It was great. I loved our conversation so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. See you next week on the Giving Starts With You podcast.